Hey everyone, how are you? And thank you for checking out another episode of Nick Drinks Beer. My name is Nick, and let's drink some beer. So today we're going to review a new beer, a limited release, as they say on the label, from one of my favorite breweries of all time, and that would be Brooklyn Brewery. And specifically today we're looking at a new beer from them, just called Unfiltered. It's a unfiltered pilsner. And I wanted to review it for a couple of reasons. One, just because I'm a complete whore for any unfiltered lager. Lager is probably, it's a very big umbrella term, but lager is, the beers that I probably gravitate to more often than not. And unfiltered lager, so whether that's a Keller beer, which is a style of German unfiltered lager, I believe Keller in German means cellar, so it's known as a cellar beer, or Keller beer's close cousin, which is the Zwickel. I love both of those styles of beer quite a bit, and in fact, small tangent, if there's a great brewery, sorry, my dog's acting very pitiful right now. There's a great brewery in St. Louis called Urban Chestnut, and they do a year-round beer that's just called Zwickel, and it's a Zwickel beer. It's an unfiltered German lager, and it is outstanding. So if you see that beer, pick that up. But back to the matter at hand. We're looking at, like I said, Brooklyn's unfiltered, so I'm a whore for a unfiltered lager, and I just think it's kind of funny. It just made me laugh that the beer's called Unfiltered. All of their marketing, their social media, their messaging has really been leaning into or leveraging that unfiltered. I know that's the name of the beer, but that's really what they've been leaning into. And it strikes me as kind of funny that in the era of haze and unfiltered, if those two words are attached to a beer, it gets more chatter, it gets more screen time. It just seems to elevate a beer in terms of its status in the conversation. I just thought it was kind of funny that they've decided to go with Unfiltered as the name of the beer. So, also kind of weird that they've released an unfiltered Pilsner in the middle of winter. So I thought that was kind of odd too. But anyway, let's get into it and see what it's like. It's 4.3% alcohol by volume, so right there in sort of traditional German or Czech brewing standards. It doesn't say this is a Czech style or a German style Pilsner. My guess would be German. I'm going to say just because I think every other Pilsner style beer that Brooklyn makes is German style Pils. So I would just say maybe they stick with the trend. But yeah, I've always loved Brooklyn's that B, their label art, that big cursive B. I can't remember the artist's name, but it was created by the same artist, the same graphic artist who did the iconic I Love New York logo or shtick. They went to that artist and got him to do the label art for Brooklyn. Brooklyn's been around for a long time now, I think since the late 80s, early 90s. And the cool thing about them is they have one of the few brewmasters in craft beer who is known just kind of on a first name basis. So there's very few guys. There's Sam, and there's Jim, and there's Vinny, and there's maybe Tommy and Ken, and maybe a few others. And the brewmaster at Brooklyn Brewery, his name is Garrett Oliver, and he's one of those guys who's just kind of known as Garrett. If you want to read more about beer instead of just watching guys like me talking to an iPhone, Garrett Oliver has also written two really phenomenal books about beer. The first one is called The Brewmaster's Table, and it's not all about. The primary thrust of it is beer and food pairing, and how pairing food and beer really is just as, or can and should be just as elevated as pairing food and wine. It also talks a lot about different beer styles and beer history and brewing, but it's really about the art and the pleasure of pairing beer and food. And it's a really, really awesome book. I've read it probably twice now, and I go back to it a lot for reference because, again, it's got a lot of really great information in there. So that's the Brewmaster's Table, and then he also was the editor of the Oxford Companion to Beer, which is what it sounds like. It's this big encyclopedia of all things beer. I have not read that front to back because I don't think there's any way one human can do that, but it's on my shelf right behind over there, and I pull it out from time to time just to reference stuff, and it's a really, really holistic, all-encompassing, comprehensive book. And the last thing I'll say about Brooklyn Brewery is I actually had the great pleasure to interview Garrett Oliver about 3 years ago for the company I used to work for. I got to interview him on the phone for about 30 minutes about beer journalism and beer writing and that kind of thing, and his sort of foray and place in that whole world. But by the end of it, we were just basically beer nerds talking about beer. And it was really, really cool because it's one of those moments where one of these people that you kind of look up to and always have wondered, what would it be like to talk to this guy for a half hour? It was really kind of exactly what I thought it was going to be. He was just a very mellow, down-to-earth guy who was just really interested and passionate about what he does. So, all right, all the backstory and side stories out of the way. Let's check out this unfiltered lager from Brooklyn. It's a little cold still, but we should be okay. Using my Brooklyn Brewery branded glass because you have to do that, right? If you have proper glassware. Sorry, it's getting a text message. Let's see what we got here. Give it a good hard pour to see about the unfilteredness of it. So, let's see. Well, that doesn't seem that unfiltered to me. Now, there could be some yeast sediment settled in the bottom of this beer, so it might take a full pour to sort of really, rouse that yeast sediment and, really get the haze into the glass. But, I mean, it's slightly hazy. I will say this, it is not necessarily crystal clear like a Pilsner should be, but it's a beautiful straw color. Really slightly, maybe leaning a little bit more toward gold, but definitely that strawish, yellowish gold. Nice little bit of eggshell white head on there, kind of soapy, sudsy bubbles. Really attractive looking beer. Let's see what she smells like. So it's got a really nice lemony character to it, which could be from the hops that they're using. I don't know if they're using Saaz hops. I don't know if they're using what other kind of noble or continental hops that they're using. But it's got this really nice sort of like slightly a little bit herbaceous lemony note to it, which I often get from unfiltered lagers. That could be coming from some of the yeast as well. That's the yeast that's still left in suspension because it's not filtered. But yeah, bright, lemony, a little touch grassy as well. Slightly herbaceous, a little bit of like dried herb kind of thing. Nice crackery malt backbone as well. Nice crackery malt. Maybe a little bit floral. But it smells awesome. Like this, again, why in the middle of winter? I don't know. But this is the kind of beer that I want outside on my back patio in the summertime with the Cubs game on the radio and just, this smells like I could crush a six-pack of this. Now, I haven't tasted it yet, but just going by the aroma, I want to sit out back and crush this beer all day long. Slight bit of like, you can't smell creamy, but it's almost like a lemon curdy kind of note to it as well. Let's see what she tastes like. First thing I got up front, I mentioned that sort of like lemony, dried herb, almost like lemon curdy kind of thing. Right up front, you get that hop there. Those like I said, those herbaceous, lemony hops. And it reminded me, as soon as the beer was in my mouth, of Pivo Pils from Firestone Walker, which is my favorite American Pilsner, hands down. And I think that beer uses Saphir hops, which is a New World German kind of hop that has that lemony, herbaceous note to it. I'm wondering if those are in there too, that Saphir hop, because it tasted just like Pivo Pils right up front. So you get that grassy, bright, slightly herbaceous floral note up front. In the middle, a really, really nice, like I said, crackery malt component. That hits as well. It's almost like not quite a water cracker, but almost a little bit of a saltine, because there is a little bit of salinity in here too. I'm wondering if they did anything to treat their water to try to get that more old world German water profile. Very soft in the mouth. You swallow it. There's not a ton of finish to it. It kind of falls off for me. I would maybe want a little bit more bitterness to it. There's a little bit of bitterness to it. It's not necessarily as much as I would want, but it is super soft. I mean, the unfiltered aspect to it, if it didn't really come clear in the glass, and again, this is just a tasting portion, if I poured a full glass, maybe it would actually look kind of hazy. But that unfilteredness to it, I think, really does add a really just soft mouthfeel to it. You're not getting that bit of spritzy carbonation that kind of prickles your tongue like you would normally get from a Pilsner-style beer. And again, the finish is not the most graceful finish to it. It just does kind of die off. There's not a ton of bitterness left to kind of leave you wanting more. But what you do get 2/3 of the way, right up front, mid-palate, is pretty enticing and pretty awesome, even if it does just kind of, slip away on you. Yeah, I mean, it's 4.3%, 4.2%, 4.3. It's a little watery. It's a little aqueous, as they say. It's a little watery, but it's not. And I'm wondering if it maybe didn't have a little bit more body to it, if there wouldn't be more finish there. I don't know. So maybe I want a little bit more body and a little bit more finish to it. But as I said on the aroma, it's a crusher. This beer is one that I would happily sit out back during a barbecue, like I said, with a ball game on, and sit in the sun and just, you buy a 6-pack of this, you have no problem putting that 6-pack away over the course of an afternoon and evening. And at 4.3%, there's no reason why you couldn't. I might look it up after the show, but I would not be shocked if this has Saphir hops in it, because that right up front, it tastes so much like Pivo Pils, which is a good thing. I think that's really, if they were going for that, congratulations, you accomplished it. If you weren't, happy accident, because it's a really nice hop flavor profile. So what do I score this? I would go. Hang on. I'll give it a 90. I'll give it a 90. It's a really, really nice beer. Again, I wish it had a little more finish to it, slight bit more body to it, but the hop profile that's there is nice. It's a little restrained, I will say that too, for a German Pils, or for they're calling it a Pilsner. Usually Pilsners have a little more hop bite to them, and a little bit more of a, pronounced bitterness on the back end. So it's lacking that a little bit. It feels a little bit tamed. But that said, it's still a really, really nice unfiltered lager. And if this was available year-round, I'd be buying it in the summer. So I will go 90 for the Brooklyn Brewery Unfiltered Pilsner. Thank you guys for checking out the show. Please leave questions, comments, concerns, etc. in the comment section there below. And yeah, we will see you guys next time. Cheers.